All right. Well, we're Team Tokyo, and this is our poster presentation on Chapter 13. And in this presentation, we've had a focus on innovation and entrepreneurship and a free market. We think that out of Chapter 13, that this was the most fascinating part that came out of it. And we wanted to just briefly take you through what happened in Chapter 13 and then talk about how we feel you can analyze that going outside of it. So, in Chapter 13, you start here at a clothing bank and you take your t-shirt here and you drop it off in the bin. And this winds up going to a thrift and consignment store, and that winds up, if they don't need it, it winds up in a processing plant, such as Transamerica Global Trading. And then they take that, split it up, and they send it across the globe into several different places. Among those, it may go into vintage clothing, such as in Tokyo. It may go to a market, such as in Africa, or it may go into a mutilator to be turned into shoddy or thread to be used in more new clothing. We have a few examples of each of those outcomes. So here we have something light, colorful. This would wind up probably in Africa because nothing offensive here. They like light, easy colors and upbeat pictures. This one here, I'm sad to say that this one's not going very many places except to the mutilator. It's too dark and it's covered with paint. And it's also old. This one right here, this one's probably going to get turned into rags, right? Because it's white and there's not a lot of paint on it, and that makes it excellent for wiping rags. And this one down here, this is good old-fashioned. This is Bob Seger. This is rock and roll, baby. This is going to a vintage clothing store. So yeah, hang on to this one. We're only asking $150. We take cash, no returns. Beyond that, we had an analysis of the chapter and a couple points that we thought were really great. And one of them is the fact that at Cummings, right, and this is a tie to Indiana as well, is that at Cummings, they're taking electronic parts off of diesel engines and they're moving these parts to Mexico where they can be refurbished and then brought back to the United States. Now the reason this is so interesting is because in Mexico, like, this would not be possible were it not for the free trade agreements that existed between here and Mexico. And in much the same way, we thought there were really strong parallels between that and what's happening with free trade in the t-shirt industry and how this unregulated market has spurred people to become smarter, faster, and better innovators. Additionally, we wanted to point out the contrast between resale clothing, which has a heavy focus on adaptation, versus new clothing, which has a heavy focus on arbitrage. Right? If you're in the new clothing industry, if you're the Gap, you're trying to get your prices down, you're trying to negotiate with the government, you've got a lobbyist, right? You're doing things on that side. Whereas if you're in resale clothing, right, the reason that Transamerica is doing as good as they are is because they're able to get the specific patterns that their customer needs in the right quantity, and the right price, the right time, before the rest of their competition, right? And that's why these two markets are so starkly different. We have a number of other examples, but we also, before this was over, we wanted to briefly take you through our little game that we think you're going to love. If you've ever played The Price is Right, this one is probably going to be familiar to you. So what happened? In the book, what she does is she takes us through a nice graph that shows us the exports of U.S. used clothing outside, right? So how much are we exporting in used clothing? Well, that number stops in 2008, so what we did is we took it for the next 4 years to find out what happened. And it turns out that that number is not 547,160K. It's actually, each digit is one number off. So it's your job as participants, and I want you to participate, to choose one number between each of these digits. Go.
4.
Okay.
5.
5. Pick 8. Come on, guys. 2. Nice. Let's hear what. That's 2 more, guys.
7.
7.
1.
Nice. Let's see if you did any good. Unfortunately, no. Your guessing skills are pretty bad. We have a lovely parting gift for you, which is information and the chance to buy our t-shirts. So it was actually over 630 million And we thought this was interesting because remember that in the book the graph stops at 2008 and you don't see the depression that happened between 2008 and 2009 and how there was a downturn. But look at what's happened since then. Look at the sharp uptick. As the economy has recovered, the number of exports that we've sent out has vastly increased. So thank you guys. That's Team Tokyo.